Hi, Jennifer. Good to see you. So over the weekend, the yellow vesters were going to pull their money out of banks in Paris. So what happened was, hi, Shari, there was a massive explosion in a bakery in Paris. I'm going to read you. I mean, the damage of this bakery was just tremendous. I mean, the pictures are. Yeah, I mean, it almost looks. You know what it almost looks like? I gotta say, it almost looks like a directed energy weapon. It's got the same kinds of characteristics where cars look like they're melted. I mean, it totally feels like that. I'm gonna put the link into the chat box so that if you want to, you can check it out. Let's see if I can jump in there. Hi, Ani. Check this out. Here you go. This is here's the link to it. Hi, Paula. So you can look at some of the pictures and you can see where these cars, I mean, they're like knocked back, and kind of looks like they're almost in that sort of melted. Like if you look at the yellow car in the link that I sent you, it's the second picture. And look at the Volks. It looks like it's a Volkswagen. I mean, the entire front end is just completely toast on this thing. I mean, this is a violent, absolutely violent event. So let me read this to you. So Paris bakery gas explosion kills 3. Gas leak believed to be a cause of blast and fire in 6-story building in 9th arrondissement. 2 firefighters and a Spanish woman have died in a massive explosion caused by a pocket of gas in a 6-story building. The woman died in hospital, and at least 46 others are said to be injured, 9 of them critically, including a 3rd firefighter in the blast in the 9th arrondissement of the capital on Saturday morning. One of the firefighters was trapped under the rubble of the destroyed building for 2.5 hours before being rescued by colleagues. French Interior Minister Christopher Castaner told journalists at the scene 2 firefighters and 2 civilians had died. The death toll figure was later revised down by the police, confirmed by the minister in a tweet. At 8:37 a.m., the fire brigade was called to 6 Rue Travis to investigate a gas leak. While they were there, a dramatic explosion occurred. Kastner said he praised the courage of the firefighters who risked their lives to save people. He said one firefighter had remained under the rubble for 2.5 hours before being rescued by colleagues. The Spanish foreign minister, Joseph Borrell, said, I profoundly regret the death of 3 people in an explosion in central Paris, among them 1 Spanish citizen. Remy Heitz, the Paris public prosecutor, said an investigation had been launched into the tragedy. The origin of the explosion was a pocket of gas. Have you noticed that these explosions are theoretically led to these gas leaks? They had a number of explosions. It was probably about, 5 months ago. It was during the summertime in Massachusetts. And you would have one house that would just be completely incinerated, and then the house next would be just fine. Right? Where have we seen that before? We've seen it in California. I remember this is back around 2009. I covered this one gas explosion that took place in San Bruno, theoretical gas explosion, and it completely just leveled an entire block in the San Bruno area. Turns out that one of the women who lived there actually worked for PG&E and was part of, no, I take that back, she worked for the state, and she was part of an investigation that was looking at PG&E's relationship with gas lines. It was a very unusual set of circumstances, let's just say. But here we have this explosion, okay? The explosion happened just before 9 a.m., was heard a mile away. Dozens of firefighters, police, ambulances rushed to the scene and rapidly sealed off surrounding areas, many of them cloaked in thick cloud. So the center of this was this bakery, right? It was this bakery. The bakery owner, Hubert Beatrix, watched shocked as dozens of firefighters struggled to put out the blaze and evacuate residents of nearby buildings. He says, I have no idea what happened. There's no gas in my shop, apart from a small supply for heating. My ovens are electric. How about that? So this bakery, which was considered sort of ground zero for this explosion, is an electric bakery. Go figure. Just thought I'd bring that up because we'd mentioned this the other day, and it was highly, highly suspect in unusual circumstances. California fires with the same intensity. Yep. Yeah. Hey, Beth, what's going on? So you just look at that photo. Looks a lot like something you'd see down in Paradise, or up in Paradise, or down in Thousand Oaks, in terms of the intensity of what looks like what occurred. Just saying. Speaking of intensity, the shutdown is now starting to affect government workers. People are starting to miss their paychecks, and ultimately, this is not good for, I think, Trump and the presidency, because I don't think the Democrats are going to budge. They're not going to budge. They're not going to do anything. They don't want him to win. They're not giving any quarter to Donald Trump. They haven't since they walked into office on the very first day after being their presumptive candidate, Hillary Clinton, even though there was probably a deal made in order for Trump to accept the presidency so that they wouldn't flip a bunch of votes and do what Democrats normally do after an election, which is retrograde the entire event and sneak in through the back door after thousands and thousands and thousands of votes have been counted, right? Hello, Rhonda, what's going on? So this is going to be an interesting situation. I don't see Trump backing off. Hi, Edgardo. Morning. Yes, I'm pretty groggy today, I have to say. I'm grouchy today, too. I'm groggy and grouchy. I got the double G going on, the groggy grouch. I'll get through it. I'm wearing bright colors to brighten my day, brighten my mood. The groggy grouch is here with you. So this leads to a very interesting photo opportunity that Trump had. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Grumpy is our middle name. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Trump had a big feast, a big spread at the White House. And the spread consisted of Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think Domino's Pizza, McDonald's, and Wendy's. I mean, it was it was bizarre, to say the least. I mean, we know the man likes fast food. It's prepared in a third-party kitchen, right? Oh, you guys are right. I'll come around. I'll come around. So he knows that the food is prepared in a third-party kitchen. I think part of the reason why Trump eats fast food is because he doesn't want to get poisoned. Because if they just order the food randomly, they don't know who it's for. More than likely, it's going to be okay. So I think he's actually trying to limit the possible damage that somebody preparing food for him. I think that's part of it, really. And the other thing is I think he really likes fast food. But the image of all those boxes on the table, on the looked like a dining room table or banquet table in the White House, to me is an indication that you better think about buying fast food. You better think about austerity, because this is a symbol that I'm not backing down from the shutdown, right? I'm not backing down from the shutdown. But I also think he just doesn't want to get poisoned. I think that's part of it. So it was a very interesting symbol, to say the least, on Trump's part. And of course, it's making the rounds as always. It's fascinating because I've been watching how the press has basically just taken off of this narrative, and it's like Trump is a Russian agent. Trump is a Russian agent. He's a Russian agent. He's a Russian agent. I mean, it's all, it is a broadly broadcasted narrative, and there's absolutely no proof, no corroboration. There's nothing that's come through that is official. Mueller is now dipping into his second year around this, wasting our taxpayers' money. In this world, we have to pick our poisons. That's true. 3-7 is Divine Michael. You're all over the place, man. Oxnard, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Shari says, if you listen to the speech he gave at the Farm Bureau convention yesterday, he said because of the shutdown, he ordered 1,000 pounds of food from great American companies. There you go. Okay. Yeah, great American companies. Hi, Kathy. Good morning. I don't know. I saw Fast Food Nation. I don't think, or not Fast Food Nation. What is it? The guy who had McDonald's for a month, Morgan Spurlock. He didn't do too well. He's picking his own poison. That's right. He's picking his own poison. Somebody ought to have a good talking to with the Donald. But anyway, the Russian collusion stuff is just a tale that keeps dragging along and along and along and along. Apparently, they've been able to trace that John Brennan was in England, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he might have been in the Soviet Union right around the time the Steele dossier was being created. Imagine that. Imagine that. So what we have here is we have a clash of the narratives, which is continuing to play out. One of which is that the FBI and the CIA were onto Trump and that he was a colluder and a Russian agent. The other narrative is that there was a group of people who were intently trying to stop Trump from becoming president and rigging up any sorts of evidence that they might have had that would have been either ginned up, drummed up, or fabricated in order to create a narrative which made it appear like the president was a Russian agent. And so we have a real sticky point here about who's telling the truth and what the intentions are behind both of these versions of so-called reality. Now, Trump could absolutely clear the decks by getting the FISA documents released unredacted, but he is not doing that. My feeling is that there's dirt. He's dirty. There's some dirt on Trump, but it's not the dirt that the FBI and the CIA are trying to, paste and glue and kludge around him. Again, if you look at his relationship with a guy by the name of Felix Sater, which came up briefly about a month ago, and Sater's name came up in conjunction with the Mueller investigation, and that quietly went away. Now, Felix Sater is a fixer. He's a fixer for a lot of other people as well. And if you go down the Trump rabbit hole and you find out sort of some of the financial dealings that Trump has been involved with, it'll lead back to the Rothschilds, back to Shabbat Lubavitch, and it would also reach out and have its tentacles into other people who are currently in government. So they have to try to find these superficial kinds of superficial and fabricated fairy tales or narratives to try to take Trump down, when in actuality, there's probably a pretty good chance that he was involved with a group of people back in the 90s. And it had to do with casinos and money and Sheldon Adelson and Russian oligarchs. I mean, there's a whole slew of stuff going on back then. But to say that he's an agent of the Russians or he's in the Russians' pocket, I think is complete and utter bullshit, and something that the American people or people in general are kind of getting tired of. It's sort of like if you're on the left and you keep hearing these things, oh, there's more, there's more, there's more, there's more. This is it. This is it. This is it. We're going to nail him. We're going to nail him. It's kind of like the right's version of the Hillary Clinton story. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. There's more. There's more. There's more. We're going to nail her. She's going to be behind bars. And so we have both sides that are kind of frothing at the mouth like rabid dogs because they're seeing this this meat that's just always out beyond their reach. Like, they're on a chase, but they can't get to the meat, right? That's the way it's been for the last 2 years. And what it does is sets up a whole series of emotions and just psychological and psychic garbage inside each and every one of us, because people by and large are looking for some level of vindication. Some level of vindication. Why is that? Why are people looking for a level of vindication? What would happen? What would happen if Trump all of a sudden wound up behind bars and did the perp walk, how would people on the left feel? And how long would that last? And how would it change their lives? Would they be happier? Would they be more productive? Would they be more compassionate? Would they be more empathetic? Would they be more generous? Would they be more abundant? Would they forgive others for their sins? What kind of revelation and transformation would that lead to? And the same could be said for Hillary Clinton on the other side. And I'm not saying that there are people that shouldn't be held accountable for their actions. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to each and every one of us, how we live our lives and unplug from the psychodrama that is going on out there. Because if you really, really look at what's going on, nothing's happening. People don't go to jail. People don't do time. People don't have their, fortunes taken away from them, unless, of course, they're about 4 or 5 tiers down, in which case they're expendable. And then they become a lesson for everybody else, which is if you go too high up the ladder and you start making waves, we will fuck you and we will ruin you. Other than that, everybody above this line gets to get away with all this bullshit. Okay. And we all know this. This is not news from the universe. Okay. So again, it becomes incumbent upon, what we can do about it, what we can do with our own lives, how we can process this or deal with it, create change, become agents of change, and see what else is going on in the world. Because if we're all waiting for that axe to drop, it's really probably not going to happen. Now, I've heard that there are now tribunals going on in Guantanamo. I don't know. I don't know. People are saying that Peter Strzok is in Guantanamo. I don't know. Do you know? Would it be better if we did know? Right? I think it would be. It'd be like, oh, wow, that guy's in Guantanamo. How about that? I will say this, though. I haven't seen a lot of John Podesta lately. That guy has been way, way under the radar. Way under the radar. What else do we have here? Chris said, unfortunately, according to New Yorker, Clinton was on Epstein's Legal Express over 20 times and Trump 6 times. Yeah, I mean, they've been down there. They've been down there. They have been in the devil's playground with Jeffrey Epstein. They've been there. Clinton and Trump, the Clintons and the Trumps were friends at one point. I mean, all these people, it's all incestuous. I think Trump got the call to become president. I think he had people, backing him. Likely it was military-industrial complex. It was his time. Maybe he had a bit of a, Paul Saul on the road to Damascus moment, which I think he probably did. And now he's trying to be a president, and he's trying to work through things and, or at least be a president who's a disruptor. Right. And I think for the most part, he's also fighting for his life and his professional livelihood. But again, big picture perspective, it's all about the deconstruction phase, which I've been talking about for a while. But I will say this as we begin to shift out of Trump land. I was at the gym last night. They have screens at the gym. And one of the screens was CNN. They've got CNN and Fox. So if you're a liberal, you can try to position yourself and get on the treadmill and watch your version of vitriol. And if you're on the right, you can get on the treadmill and try to watch your version of vitriol. But one of the things that really struck me is that the president and the government is in the news every single day. Every single day. And it's been that way ever since I can remember. The president this, the president that, the president this, the president that, the president this, the president that. House Majority Leader this, House Majority Leader that. On Capitol Hill today. It's like we are immersed. Like, wouldn't it be great if, the news said, well, the president doesn't really have anything to say or do today. So we don't really have anything to report. There's no news. Congress is pretty quiet. They're pretty happy and content. They don't have anything really to say or do today. So, we're going to take the day off or cover ice fishing in Minnesota. That never happens. It just struck me how inundated we are with the 24/7 activity of the president. And it's not just Trump. It went back to Obama. It went back. It's all the fucking time. It's all the time. And because of the fact that we see the president always engaged in something, right? It feels to me like it's kind of mimicking or mirroring a crisis-oriented state. Now, it may not be a crisis in name, but it feels that way. It feels like there's always some level of agitation, some level of something being stirred up, some level of something having to be resolved in a big kind of way. And what does that do to our consciousness? It disturbs us. It's disturbing because nothing ever gets settled. It's like it's a job that's never finished. It's like finish the job. You know, the job is to, like, in my mind, in my estimation, have less of this bullshit at a higher level and have people concentrating on working on their lives, building their lives. That's the job. Finish the job. Finish the job is to basically become kind of irrelevant, to be honest with you. Be kind of irrelevant. But, you know, of course, it's never the case because they want this person, this figure, to be a polarizing figure. It doesn't matter. Obama was polarizing. Maybe not as polarizing as Trump, but he was polarizing nonetheless. And so we're always dealing with this heightened state of low-level drama and trauma. It just struck me. It's like, I mean, come on. It's always going on. It's like tiresome. And it's not just Trump, it's the entire process, to be honest with you. Let's see, what do we have here? Maybe just retired to the Epstein Island. You become what you fight. The harder you fight, the stronger your enemy becomes. The power is in walking away. But all those stuck in the matrix see that as quitting. Possibly. Steve and Chris, maybe we should have a news channel reporting on people's epiphanies. Oh, that's what this is. Yeah. Thank God for YouTube. Thank God for YouTube. I think they backed off a little bit on the demonetization piece and deplatforming. We're not seeing as much of that. Maybe to get the whales out of the way. I wanted to talk a little bit. I want to shift a little bit here. And so there's a theme. Apparently now I'm on a theme. And the theme is this war on men. And there are two commercials that are out now. And one is like a film. It's like a mini film. I think it's about a minute and almost 2 minutes long. And it's put out by Gillette. Now, Gillette has apparently gone into the social justice programming. Some people at Gillette have become socially programmed to adopt social justice mores and ideologies. So there's a guy by the name of Shaquille Griffin, and he plays for the Seattle Seahawks. He's a nice story. He's a nice young guy. He's African American. He has a twin brother, Shaquem, and so it's Shaquem Griffin. Shaquille. So Shaquille has two hands. Shaquem has one hand. And they're both like really good young men. Of the two, Shaquille is probably the better player. I mean, you know, if you have one hand in football, you're a bit limited. Let's just face it, okay? It doesn't mean that you're not a good player, but you're a bit limited. So he's a bit limited. He plays on special teams. He gets a little time in sort of passing situations. They bring him in as like a fourth or fifth linebacker. But Gillette decided to do a shaving commercial around Shaquem Griffin. And it's a total win for them, because it starts with them basically showing him as a young boy, getting instruction around playing football. But you can tell he only has one hand, right? So then there's this father figure who's kind of through the movie or the commercial. It looks like a mini movie. You know, teaching him how to play, coaching him up, and then he's teaching him how to shave. So, you know, he's got the one hand going. It's like the young teen, right? He's got the one hand. So Gillette's getting a real bang for the buck on this. Number one, they have an African American. That's great. That's great, right? Because a lot of shaving commercials, you know, athletes in the past, you know, Joe Namath, and remember how Joey Heatherton shaved Joe Namath and got his face all nice and, you know, soft. But now I've got an African American, and now he's also disabled. Right, so you've got a disabled person and an African American in one commercial. Gillette just hits that one out of the park. It's like, okay, great, okay, so you've got that. All right, I get it, fine. It's a big virtue signal and selling to a certain demographic. The young man has a nice story. It's okay. He gets to be able to profit off the story, make a little money on the side. Gillette's throwing him some bones. So, whatever. Okay, fine. Now they've got a new installment in their awakening. Gillette's getting woke. So now they have this minute and a half film. It's almost 2 minutes long. And the film has to do with a critique on men. Okay, now this came out almost right at the time that the American Psychological Association or Psychiatrical Association said that men are toxic. Okay, this came out right around the same time, and it basically is about men standing up, walking away, not being all these things that men theoretically are or have been. Boys will, all these cliches. And then they bring in hashtag me too. Something happened, something changed. It was hashtag. It's almost 2 minutes of completely tearing down men. Completely tearing down men. And what's interesting, of course, is because when you shave, you're engaged in, to some extent, kind of manicuring, removing, and taming your masculinity, which is theoretically what separates us from other members of the opposite sex. Although that's not always the case. There are bearded women in this world, and born naturally that way, by the way. Anyway, so they've just come out with this, and it's like it's really insulting. And women, by the way, have found this commercial insulting. So now Gillette is starting to piss off both men and women, right? So they're women. It's like Gillette, you don't speak for me. You don't get to choose the narrative that I have, or the feelings that I have towards men. So now they're pissing off sort of. And by the way, Gillette makes razors for women too, right? So if you haven't seen the trailer, if you haven't seen the video, I have it up on my Facebook page, and you can check it out. It's insulting. It's really insulting. So now there's going to be a backlash. I guarantee you, there's going to be a backlash, and men they're not going to buy Gillette products. It's like, see you later. I haven't bought a Gillette product in years. I use generic, store-bought stuff. So good luck, Gillette. Of course, they won't say anything. They'll stand by their commercial. They'll stand by their statement because they have to now. They stepped in it, and now they have to stay in it. What else we have here? Robert, if money was no object, where would you move to? Anywhere on Earth, not inside. Oh, that's a good question. Tess Mark says, totally why I quit TV and radio. I'll answer that question. Joe Mama, as a mom of a son, I'm disgusted with the anti-male narrative. Good. We need more women that are disgusted. More women. Chris and Steve say, and of course, there's nothing toxic generated by Procter and Gamble. Almost makes me nostalgic. One of the first global conspiracies we ever heard, going back decades, is P&G being satanic. Yeah, it's like the logo. I broke that down a long time ago when I was doing stuff on Foster Gamble and the whole Thrive movement, which I thought was kind of a joke in some ways. Luckily, my wife likes the 5 o'clock shadow. The 5 o'clock shadow is, it's one of those things that is kind of a sign of men's virility. That's what they say. So Shari asked me a question. If I could move anywhere on Earth, where would I go? That's a good question. I'd like to have my own island, to be honest with you. I'd be happy with my own island. I wouldn't want to live alone on my island. I'd like to have a couple of restaurants, maybe own the restaurants, if that's possible. And maybe have a couple of villages, do the Marlon Brando thing, do the Raymond Burr thing. I think more like the Marlon Brando thing. Who else did that? What was his name? John? Didn't he do something like that? He had his own little island, his own little community. I could dig that. I also am really interested in like Eastern Europe and Central Europe. Places like Slovenia and Serbia, Montenegro. Those places interest me. I'd like to go there one of these days. before it too becomes corrupted. Edgardo says, I'm done with Gillette, but what's the secret agenda? The secret agenda is to completely disassemble men, to make men, appear inert and powerless. And of course, create more divide and conquer. Another part of the divide and conquer thing, right? There's also another commercial out now, and it has to do with a car company. And that car company is Volkswagen. And the car is the Tiguan. And some of you may have seen this commercial. It's a relatively new commercial. And the whole commercial is a setup where there are about 3 women, and they're using the Tiguan to move things out of an apartment and then move to a new apartment. And you're thinking, okay, well, this is an adventure. They're moving. It's great. And then one of the women walks up to the apartment to get sort of the final pieces of the apartment, and her boyfriend is there. And her boyfriend is jacked into a VR headset. And he's completely oblivious that everything has been removed from the apartment and that his girlfriend has left him. And now she's in her Tiguan with 2 of her besties high-fiving that she's out of there. And I watched that commercial, and I'm like, I was, I usually have something to say. And I was like stunned. Because if that role was reversed, and let's say there was a woman who was on her Oculus goggles doing all this stuff, right? And it was and the dudes were coming up and they were taking stuff out of the apartment, and they're high-fiving like, yeah, it's, dumb broad or whatever. What do you think would happen to Volkswagen? There would be a call for a national boycott against Volkswagen because they're portraying a woman as being completely out of touch, narcissistic, and immersed in technology to the point where they can't fully engage in a relationship. In other words, they're dumb, self-centered, and uncaring and unfeeling. I guarantee you, Volkswagen would pull the ad, and then they would offer an apology, and they'd offer a discount on cars to women. But no, they're selling cars to women, and they're going to sell the car as an object of power at the expense of the dumb motherfucker who's just up in the apartment playing the Oculus game, or being immersed in his virtual reality world. It's incredibly insulting. Watch the commercial. It's incredibly insulting. And it's not even like selling the merits of the car. Like there's a Cadillac commercial out where this woman's driving a Cadillac. They're selling cars to women because they know that women make about 65% of the purchases in a family. And I think that it levels around 70% when it comes to automobiles. So they're selling cars to women. Now there's a Cadillac commercial. I don't really, whatever. It's a woman. She's in this Cadillac. She goes through like a Stargate or a portal. Swear to God. She's going through a tunnel. The tunnel becomes like this portal. And on the other side of the portal, she's in this magical world where everything's colorful, and driving through the city without any traffic is kind of this amazing, liberating, enlightening, cosmic experience. And along the way, there's 2 versions. There's another version where she's there with her girls, and they're having this kind of out-of-body experience with all these amazing sorts of images of freedom, like skateboarding and stuff like that. And then she comes back out of the portal and she's into her life. I don't have a problem with that. You're selling a car to a woman. You're kind of glorifying the fact that driving is cool. It's liberating. Not only is it liberating, but it'll take you to another dimension. I mean, that's the message of that commercial. but it's not at the expense of somebody else. It's not like, commercial Schadenfreude, which this Volkswagen commercial clearly is. And we've seen this for a long time now. We've seen men be punching bags in commercials. And quite frankly, the time it's over. And I know this because men are starting to say, they're starting to wake up and say, this shit stinks. More and more men are giving less and less credence to, being politically correct. And I think, to a lot of men's credit, they're also doing their best not to be knuckle dragging meatheads at the same time. It's a fine line, right? Because, as beings, whether we're men or women, we have to be able to address and live with our character and express our character on a day-to-day basis. And if we don't have it, then we're not really, having kind of the full gravitas and foundation for our lives. And that's something we can work on and build and address. It's like, character is something that, you can be born with it, but you can also grow it. You can practice it. And it has to do with dignity as well. I've been having this debate with this guy in this message board about this quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G plays for the 49ers. And one of the things that Jimmy G did is he went to this award ceremony with a porn star. He's a Scorpio. Probably, some fantasy. And I just said, franchise quarterbacks don't do that. They don't go to award ceremonies where there's all the press with a porn star. And we got into this debate, right? We got into this debate about, well, he's just there. He's breaking up with a woman. What better way to do it than to make it final like that? And I thought, really? Okay, well, you're going to break up with a woman, and what you're going to do is you're going to bring a porn star onto a stage, a public stage, and break up with a woman and send a message to the woman. That woman has a family, that woman has friends, and who knows, maybe she treated him bad, whatever. I don't know the backstory. But if you're that woman and you see your boyfriend, on stage at an event with a porn star, that is damaging. That's damaging shit, right? That is damaging. And I'm not going to sit here and say she deserved it or there's some sort of karmic justice involved. That's not my role to play. But from this other perspective, it's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Where's your dignity in all of this? It's one thing to have a crazy fling or whatever, on this. I don't know. I don't want to get judgmental here. That's not what I want to do. But what I'm trying to share with you is that, there are times where, we're based on our public merits in some ways or lack thereof, and especially in the realm of men. So I don't know. I'm doing my best to change my game. It's been a very interesting process. When I was younger, growing up in California, I grew up in the 1970s. It was like anything goes, man. I went through a big anything goes phase. I was, whether I knew it or not, I was an acolyte of Crowley. Do as thou wilt. That was my credo, and I was going to learn from it. And I had a lot of great experiences. And there's like that tail to that evolution. It's just kind of tailed off. And it's been interesting over the last few years to really examine myself from now even a distance, being here in Fredericksburg and being in a different culture and not being around a lot of the same sort of signs, ciphers, and signifiers that have been a part of my life. Because even Austin had a little bit of that, right? This is a very different environment. So it's caused me to really re-examine a lot of things that and this has been going on for a while, but it's caused me to really re-examine things that I just thought were sort of gospel true and real about, my own existence and my own existence as a man. So this has been a very interesting and in a lot of ways very liberating time for me. And again, it's an evolutionary process. And so as we wake up, and I've been talking about this for a while, but it becomes more glaring now, way more glaring. And we've got Chiron and Aries coming up again. It's getting ready to come back into Aries after its stay in Pisces. And I think there's going to be a big men's movement. I really do. I feel like there are a lot of men that are wounded. I mean, look at the divorce rate. I'm sure there are wounded women too. I don't want to say one's more wounded than the other, but look at the divorce rate. Men wind up leaving their homes, and a lot of times they get isolated and frozen out. And the suicide rate for men over 50 is through the roof. There's a lot of wounded men on this planet. And having bullshit commercials like what Volkswagen is doing or what Gillette is serving up isn't helping that at all. Isn't helping that at all. Gillette might have been better served in their attempt to address the situation and heal the situation, and maybe have a minute and a half film where men and women are using their various, razors. Maybe a man uses a woman's razor, a woman uses a man's razor, and they laugh about it, and maybe one gets cut and the other daubs it. I don't know, but there could have been a better way of or a higher way. But see, that's not what they're trying to do, because there's an agenda. And the agenda is to continue to break down men in our society, because men in our society are a threat to global hegemony, and that's where it's at. That is where it's at. And if you're not seeing it, then you can watch me for the next 20 years. You're not going to get it. They make money on the gender difference. Pink things cost more. Oh, that's interesting. So many men my age are wounded. Absolutely. Absolutely. What's going on? Tia Bia Mama from Chile. At least they dissed BS technology. Let's see what else we have. The power of the purse. They're inculcating that men are clueless, useless morons. That's been going on for a while. What if they did a commercial of the transgender man? I thought about that. I actually thought about that. That entered into my thought process. And have a transgender woman who now has facial hair shaving. Going from woman to man and has a face. That would be, there you go. And that's coming. That's coming to make way for gender fluidity. Yes, absolutely. I think that is coming. That's happening. Oh, man. Another gray day here in the Fred. I'm not sure how much more I have to share with this topic of conversation, but it's one to pay attention to, and it's one that's making waves. Some of you might know who Owen Benjamin is. He's this guy that's gone off the Reds, and he addresses this a lot. More and more men are picking up on this. More and more men are picking up on it, and the power of the purse does matter. And I guarantee you that Gillette will see a drop in their sales. People are going to walk away from their product. They're going to walk away. Totally. And you know what? Then we'll talk about it. Like, for instance, all those companies that got in on the David Hogg boycott. One of the companies was Dick's Sporting Goods, and they stopped selling guns, and they made a big political statement. Dick's has been in free fall in terms of its sales for the last year. Every quarter, Dick's has lost more and more money. So that was a bad choice. That was not a great choice. And I think whoever convinced the higher ups at Gillette that this was really the way that they wanted to go in terms of recreating their product, I think there was a really bad call. I mean, what's the deal here? Is it because millennials don't shave? Is that why they're trying to sell these products in the way that they're doing, market it the way that they're doing? Of course, there's an agenda afoot, but they're trying to appeal to the millennial pocketbook, guys that have beards that are about 4 or 5 inches long. Well, you may want to shave them. If you want to be a real man, shave your ass and shave it every day. What else do we have here? Oh, there's Tree. Hi, Robert. Speaking of shaving, I freaked out at a commercial I saw yesterday of a dad shaving his daughter's leg while teaching her how to shave. Now, I have not seen that one. That is weird. There's some women in the chat room here. How do you feel about that? How would you feel if the father of your daughter was teaching your daughter how to shave her leg? Would that make you comfortable? How would you feel about that? Just curious. Let's see. It all starts with genital mutilation at birth. Ooh, Christine gets right to it, man. Absolutely. The circumcision. Yeah, bad move. Adam wasn't circumcised, but apparently Abraham was, right? So that word starts off. The Abraham cut. Yeah. Joe says not cool. Marie says not cool. You know, can you just imagine that? Hey, Brandy, come on over here. I want to show you something. Where are you, Dad? I'm in the bathroom. Come on over here. Here, sit down. Where? Well, right here in the toilet. It's okay. What are you doing, Dad? Well, I'm going to show you how to shave your legs. Really? Yeah. Don't worry about it. First of all, you've got to put the shaving cream on your shin. And you've got to make sure you have a really good razor. And you want to go in one direction the whole time. Am I right? Do you see that? Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, how weird is that? Right? How weird is that? If I was if I was a mom and my husband was shaving my daughter's legs, you know, I'd start to look at my husband a lot more differently at that point. It depends. Stop, please. That's weird. Yeah, I know it's weird, but I had to turn up the volume, right? Because that's really kind of where it's at. You know, I don't know. So TB Mama says it depends. Okay, so there could be some neutral ground here. Why would he know how to shave a leg in the first place? I would know where to begin. Well, Steve, you're born a little too late because now there's going to be mandatory leg shaving classes at university. TB Moment says, I think it's so bad for society. I think they're determined to drive us into the dirt. Of course they are. So it's all about demoralization and degradation, right? We're not going to take it. We're not going to take it. Anyway, what else? I'm sorry, I had to bring the weirdness. It's okay. It is weird. Look, men can be men, or men can be creeps. Depends on how it is slanted. It's true. It's true. I'm not sure I'd want. If I was a man, I wouldn't shave my daughter. I am a man, but if I was a man who had a daughter, I wouldn't shave my daughter's legs. That's just like, you know, go talk to your mom, right? Go talk to your mom. Commercials push the agenda as much as they push a product. It's changed now. I mean, there's always been kind of an agenda, but now we're in a whole different phase and a whole different cycle. It's a whole different phase and cycle. It's like it's on. The game is on. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what are you going to do about it? Again, we try to have some resolution, some kind of completion here at right around the 50-minute mark, which is where I'm at right now. And it's a daily exercise. It's a daily meditation. And I'll tell you really where it's at. And I know that there are probably not a lot of people in their 20s that are watching this. I don't think I skew to that demographic. But if you are, then part of what I believe is a really, really important strategy or something to take into account, that yes, we're getting through our lives on a daily basis. And yes, we're learning to navigate through some very interesting times. But there's a much longer view of where we are and where we're headed and what is moving from us generationally from this point forward. I've talked about this before, that the people who are basically running this program and running this show, well, they've been doing this for a while, and they have a generational investment in what they're doing. They see time in very long cycles, not decades, but centuries, and centuries upon centuries. A lot of these people have been around since the 1200s, the 1300s, and have been building on their fortune and their influence from that point in the past and moving into the future, a future which they would ultimately, at some point in time, dominate If it wasn't them that would dominate the future, it would be their family line or their bloodline, generational dominance. And this is what we're up against. These are people that have legacies. These are people that have invested in the mansions of time, even if it's dark time. So if you're somebody who's in your 20s, my advice to you would be to work on your legacy. Start your legacy. Look at your life and look at what you're working on and the people that are in your life as not just being temporal expressions of biology in any given moment, or at least an extended period of moment over a lifetime, but lifetimes that stretch into the future. Because one of the things that we've lost touch with is the capacity for a long time. And to understand that we are part of a chain of people, a part of a chain of influence that extends backwards and into the future, no matter what that future may or may not look like, depending upon how we view it or the information that we take in as a result of all the stimuli. It may be uncertain, but it may not be. That uncertain future might just be another trick of the tail, another false narrative to keep us from actually extending ourselves into the future via our own biology, or at the very least our own consciousness related to that. So if you're young, if you're in your 20s, I'd say don't be afraid of the world. Invest in your life, invest in who you are, and invest in the future. And invest it in a way that you build, right? You build it up, you build it up, you build it up. This is one of the things that I've learned about my own life, because I've taken a very circuitous route, I've taken a very, crooked path, a Byzantine path to kind of where I am today. But if I were to look back on my life and change a couple things, I would have gotten like at least maybe one or two things a little bit differently. And that would have been to invest in my life and my life earlier to the point where I saw myself as an extension of something moving into the future. That would have been different. So if you're young and you're watching this, the world may look daunting at times. You may be burdened with student debt, but I'm telling you, there are other people, there are other forces that have a much longer view of how to be here and be a part of this thing. And by doing that, they're essentially determining the long-term narrative. So if we want to change anything, we have to have our own version of the long-term narrative. Now, how does that affect us here and now? Well, for a lot of us, we're already further on down the road with our lives. But that's okay too, because some of us are parents, some of us are grandparents, and in which case we can still invest in the future by consciously interacting with our progeny to the best of our ability and encouraging them to live their life in a way that's going to be organic and healthy and wholesome and connected to values that maybe they themselves can root in their own way. And being a parent is not a perfect exercise. In fact, in many cases, it's a lesson of imperfection, but that never stopped us from trying. All right. I think that's it for today. What else do we have here on the chat? I do. That's why I work with Stone. Stone is, long time. Stone is a story in time. Robert, hope you feel better. Everybody have a wonderful day. Can you post a conversation to the Freeman? Let's see. Sure. You can do that right now. Ask and ye shall receive. No problemo. Give me 1 second. Going to load her up right here. Welcome to Freeman TV. There it is. I'm making a little copy here. Give me 1 sec. All right. There we go. It says error. Try again. Damn it. Just go to Freeman TV. I'm the first. Try one more time. Yeah, too many. Yeah. Just go to Freeman TV. Okay? All right. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be back tomorrow. And Have a great day.